Good night, gals and ghouls. For tonight's story, grab some popcorn, some snacks, and get comfortable. We are going to be talking about werewolves tonight. Yes, you heard me correctly. Werewolves. Anywho, what you're going to hear me discuss today is based off of a book I read called Werewolf by, I forgot, but I'm going to put the picture right here somewhere in case you're interested in reading it. And this is a case that Ed and Lorraine Warren even got involved in. So this is a story about a man who believed he was a real live werewolf, okay? And his name is David William Ramsey, but I'm going to be referring to him as Bill throughout this story a lot, okay? And at the end of this video, you can determine for yourself or come to your own conclusion as to whether this was a real life werewolf, a case of possession, or a case of mental illness, or just someone who didn't know how to handle his... Speaking of, give me a second. You guys might like my little wine glass here. Okay, here we go, getting into it. David William Ramsey was born on November 11th, 1943, in a town called Southend-on-Sea in England. He had a fairly normal childhood, and he liked sports, girls, and movies. Bill especially loved movies. Now, he was a very imaginative child who would play for long hours in his backyard. Let's talk about the night when Bill noticed a change in him, shall we? Now, when Bill was 9 years old, he was playing outside when he felt a sudden overwhelming coldness come over him. It's almost as if his body temperature dropped 20 degrees. He starts shaking and smells a foul odor. So foul, in fact, that he thought he'd vomit. Eventually, the coldness kind of faded away and he just kind of continued playing as usual. But he knew something. He didn't know exactly what, but something had changed in him. It was puberty. No, I'm just kidding. One day while playing outside, Bill stayed outside kind of longer than usual this night, and it was starting to get dark. Now, while playing, he stops briefly to look up at the night sky, and he then hears his mother call for him to go inside. For some reason, this irritated Bill, and he felt an overwhelming rage take over him. As soon as he turned, he caught his shoe against the fence post, which causes him to trip and fall, and this angers him even more. He heard himself rumble and growl, and he proceeded to tear the fence post from the ground. The fence post was planted pretty deep. Even some dirt and grass kind of flung up with it. And his mother, seeing this, shouts out to Bill's dad. His mom and dad run outside and witness Bill swinging the post over his head like it's nothing. Bill's parents shout out for him to put it down. Bill then falls to his knees and starts ripping the wire fencing with his hands and teeth. His father tries to pick him up but can't due to Bill's incredible strength. Bill, a 9-year-old, just tore a fence post out of the ground. Like, that's not normal, right? Bill's mother begins to cry, and hearing her causes him to kind of regain some sort of control, or a bit of control, okay? He throws the fence to the ground. His hands and mouth are now bloodied from the wire fence. He tries to speak to his parents but can't. Instead, a growl bursts out of his mouth and his parents run back inside. As they are running back inside, Bill's mother trips and Bill's dad tries to help her up. As he is trying to help her stand back up, he turns back and believes to see a wolf where Bill was originally standing. They lock the door and leave Bill outside. Do you blame them? Once Bill calms down, he approaches the door and knocks. His parents understandably hesitate to let him in, but they eventually decide to open the door and Bill runs to their arms. The three of them embrace each other as they hug and cry over what just occurred. After this incident, they went on as normal with their lives and never spoke of this incident again. as if nothing had happened pretty much. After this incident, Bill went on to pretty much live a fairly normal life. He even went on and married a woman by the name of Abby. And Abby and Bill went on to have 3 children. Now, it is during this year, though, in 1965, that Bill started to have a dream. In the dream, Bill would see Abby, his wife, in the kitchen washing the dishes, and he would approach her from behind. But when Abby would turn to face him, her smile would fade away and she would scream in horror. The dream eventually stops, but Bill awakes one night in the year 1967, and he hears a low rumbling animal-like sound. This freaks him out a little bit, and he thought something was in the room with him. But he later realizes that the sound is actually coming from him, from his chest to be exact. Incident number 2. On a Sunday evening after a long day of work, Bill and his 2 co-workers, Jeremy Wright and Scott Bursnell, go out for a few drinks at a public house. Bill has plenty of drinks. Towards the end of the night, Bill goes to the restroom just before they're getting ready to head out and go back home. He goes to the restroom, and when he goes, I assume to wash his hands. You know how there's a mirror normally on the wall? When Bill looks up at the mirror, he believes to see a wolf in the reflection. He kind of brushes this off, heads back out to meet his friends, and they get ready to go home. Now, Scott is the one who drove home, as he was the most sober out of all 3 of them. Jeremy and Bill were in the back seat when suddenly that familiar cold feeling takes over Bill, and he has an intrusive thought to grab Jeremy and, as Bill put it, really do some violence to him. Bill tries to fight the feeling off. He tries to fight that feeling so hard, in fact, that he dug his nails so deep into his palms that he drew blood. Unfortunately, Bill is unsuccessful at fighting this urge, this feeling, fighting this intrusive thought off. Then comes this loud wolf-like growl from Bill, followed by him lunging at Jeremy. He attacks Jeremy basically in the back seat as Scott is driving, right? He's just trying to get him home. Scott pulls the car over and they all step out. And what's the first thing Bill does? Instead of being like, hey, whoa, sorry, I don't know what happened, he just goes like to a little area and takes a... He pees, okay? That's what he did. So Jeremy asks if he's all right. Like, hey, Bill, you good? What the heck was that? You just attacked me and now you go and pee, and then... I don't know, very awkward situation here. But basically, Bill doesn't answer anything and he just gets back in the car. So now they all get back in the car. But Jeremy now sits in the front passenger seat. You know, he's probably thinking, there's no way I'm sitting back in that back seat with Bill after what just happened. And he still has provided 0 explanation for it. But I mean, they did just go out for drinks. Remember, Bill drank a significant amount, so he could have just assumed, oh, it's the drinks getting to him. Who knows? But now Jeremy is sitting in the front and Bill is in the back seat alone. Now that night, when Bill got back home, he went straight to sleep. But the next morning, his wife, Abby, lets him know that he was just tossing and turning the entire night and making growl-like sounds or growl-like noises. Now, he talks to Abby about what happened the previous night and kind of, explains to her about what went on. And in Abby's words, she said she believed that Bill believed that he was turning into a werewolf. Now, the next time Bill saw his friends, Jeremy and Scott, he basically tells them it was all a big joke. Gotcha. And things went on as normal after that, pretty much, okay? For the next year and a half, at least. Until one night, Abby is awakened to the sound of Bill crying. So she wakes up at about 3:28 a.m. And Abby asks him what's wrong, as a concerned wife. And Bill just kind of tells her, don't worry about it, go back to sleep, leave me be, okay? But obviously, Abby was not able to fall asleep straight away. I mean, he's crying. She's kind of wondering what the heck. And so she stays awake, and she says that Bill stayed up for about 2 hours just touching his face. That's kind of weird. Just as a side note, okay? Bill was working multiple jobs at this time, including that of a taxi driver and a carpenter when this occurred. So Abby just kind of thought this is probably due to exhaustion, So he's probably, taking on too much. He needs some time off. He needs rest. Maybe this is some sort of episode he's having due to that, okay? Let's move on to incident number 3. On Monday, December 5th, 1983, Bill is on his way back to the taxi cab company. Remember, one of his various jobs was being that of a taxi driver, and he starts feeling a pain in his chest. Now, fearing that this may be a heart attack or some sort of other health issue, he drove himself to the hospital. The nurses brought him in immediately, started checking him, doing what nurses do. But everything seemed to be fine with Bill. Then he feels that rumbling sensation start up again in his stomach. He began to growl and swing his arms violently. Bill even grabbed one of the nurse's arms. He grabs her arm and he takes a bite out of it. He bites her. Now, a police officer who just so happened to be at the hospital during this time hears the commotion and runs to help. He tries to get Bill to calm down by calmly letting him know that, he wants to help him, not hurt him. So he's kind of like, hey, I'm here to help. I'm not here to hurt you. And basically tries to get Bill to calm down. An intern notices kind of what's going on, and he steps in to help, and between him and the officer, they are able to restrain Bill and put him in a gurney. They inject Bill with Thorazine, which basically puts Bill to sleep, and Bill later wakes up in an ambulance with no recollection of what happened. Moving on to incident number 4 with Bill. On January 28th, 1984, another incident yet again at the hospital. Ramsey was driving back home this time from his parents' place when he suddenly felt that cold feeling take over his body again. He drove himself again straight to the hospital, where he knocked a nurse across the room into some chairs. 2 of the patients see this and notice what's going on, and they try to subdue him but couldn't. Bill runs down the hospital hallway. Police are called, and up to four officers try to subdue Bill or get him under control, but couldn't. They're not successful. Bill is just kind of has this super strength, right? When he would have these episodes, he just had this ability, this strength. One of the officers was thrown so hard onto the floor by Bill that he himself had to be hospitalized for 4 days. Finally, they were able to get him under control and cuff him, and he is taken to South End Jail. Bill, okay, so they take him to jail. A police officer there talks to Bill and tells him that he thinks he should check himself into a mental hospital. Now, Bill declines. He's kind of worried about what people are going to say. What are people going to think? So he just kind of says, no, it's okay. I got this under control. But the officer does warn him that if this happens again, because again, this isn't the first time anymore, that's not going to be a choice anymore. So Bill will be taken straight to Runwell Mental Hospital if this happens again. Incident number 5. Bill picks up a 19-year-old prostitute one night named Lauren Reynolds. Now, she gets into his vehicle, but she was a bit hesitant at first because, she did say he kind of right off the back seemed a little bit odd, but she just thought, well, this is a potential customer client, So she eventually gets into the car with him, into the vehicle. And she tries to ask him questions, but Bill does not answer her. He answers none of her questions, as a matter of fact, and then he begins making growling noises. So obviously, Lauren Reynolds at this point is frightened and realizes, who did I just get in the car with? This is clearly a psychopath. This guy's got issues. What is going on? So she's frightened. And then Bill, now I don't know why he picked her up in the first place, okay? He allegedly told her, you're too young to be a prostitute, so that he was kind of quote unquote trying to help her out. And he decides to drive her straight to the police station. So I don't know if that's true, if he really was, out of the goodness of his heart, was thinking, you're too young, let me drive you to the police station. Or maybe this is the night, in my mind, I'm thinking this is the night that he was ready to take this to the next level and maybe murder her. You know what I mean? Like maybe get rid of her. I don't know. And then he had a change of heart. I'm not sure. But he tries to kind of control himself. And in fear that he might hurt her, he drives her straight to the police station. Once they arrive at the police station, Lauren runs inside and tells the police there's a strange man that picked her up and he's parked outside and she believes he's trying to hurt her, or that he's like something's going on, right? She's terrified at this point. Officer Brad Busby goes outside to meet Bill and asks for his name. Bill does not answer, but Officer Brad Busby did say that he smelled alcohol on him. Remember, just a note, he did smell some alcohol on him. Now, the dogs that were in the police kennel were barking more than usual that night, and this is something that Officer Brad Busby noticed. And then he hears this growling. And he kind of assumes, oh, it's the dogs. But then he realizes, no, this growling sound or this growling noise is not coming from the dogs, but from Bill, from this man, right? That he's out there kind of not confronting, but yeah, that he approached. Bill then proceeds to attack Brad and tries to kill him by choking him while continuously chanting, "When the devil's in me, I'm strong. When the devil's in me, I'm strong." Backup eventually arrives, and up to 6 officers arrive, and it's difficult for even the 6 of them to control Bill or to subdue him and get him under control. Now, the police surgeon even stepped in and injected Bill with a sedative, but it did nothing to him. He was even forced to inject him for a second time because that first one just did absolutely nothing to Bill. So again, Bill is displaying signs of superhuman strength. Not even a sedative did anything to him this time. He had to be injected twice with the sedative 2 times, okay? After this incident, Bill is taken to Rumwell Mental Hospital, okay, where he did end up staying for 10 days. Now, while in this mental hospital, they ran multiple tests, or a variety of tests, including x-rays, just all these tests on Bill, but they found nothing. No explanation as to why this was happening to him, what's going on, nada. Now, this is where Ed and Lorraine Warren come into the story. Ed and Lorraine Warren hear about this, right? About the werewolf of England, okay? And isn't there a song like that? London Werewolf or something? Okay. Anyways, sorry, got sidetracked there. But anyways, Ed and Lorraine Warren hear about him and eventually reach out to him, and they contact Bill and they agree to meet, right? Now, upon meeting, Ed lets Bill know that he believes he is possessed. So he doesn't think he's a werewolf, but he doesn't think he's crazy either. He's just like, I think you're possessed. I believe you are possessed by a wolf spirit. This is what Ed believes, okay? So he tells Bill this. And Ed and Lorraine invite him to America to have an exorcism performed by Bishop McKenna. After some thought, Bill eventually agrees. He was a bit hesitant, but he's kind of like, hey, I'm willing to do anything at this point to stop this from happening. Bill eventually agrees. And before leaving to America, Bill has one last attack, this time in his home. So during this incident, he flung his dog, poor doggy, across the room, injuring him. Now, just when he's about ready to attack Abby next, his wife, Abby was able to calm him down by just simply speaking to him, talking to him and saying, Bill, I love you. Bill, like her love, just her being his wife, she's able to successfully calm him down. Now, once in America, the night before the exorcism, Bill has one more episode, okay? So he started growling, and Abby again tried to calm him down, just as before, by saying, hey, Bill, it's me, calm down, come back to me, so on and so forth. But this time, it didn't work as well, and Bill eventually tries to choke her, just like he did with that officer. But she eventually succeeds in calming him down again. But this time, he did get physical with her. And the next morning when Bill awoke, He had no recollection of what had happened, but he notices kind of the marks on her neck, and he quickly kind of, puts two and two together and realizes what must have happened. So he feels horrible and feels like this exorcism is his last resort, and he really hopes that this will work. So let's get into the exorcism. The people who were present at this exorcism were Ed and Lorraine Warren, Abby, Bill's wife, Bill himself, obviously, Bishop McKenna, and 4 off-duty policemen who were present just in case Bill got out of control. Now, David Alford and John Cleve were also present, and they were the writer and the photographer for the People newspaper. During the exorcism, so Bishop McKenna kind of starts, and he's doing all of this in Latin, and nothing's really happening at first. And according to Bill, he even found it to be a little bit silly as he's sitting there, that he almost, so silly that he almost kind of started laughing, because he's kind of like, this is ridiculous. What am I doing? Like, why did I think this would work, It wasn't until about 30 minutes into the exorcism when Bishop McKenna stepped forward and touched the stole he was wearing to Bill's forehead. Now, when he does that, Bill begins thrashing around in his chair, right? Now, Bill tries to attack the bishop, and the 4 off-duty police officers that are present are about to get ready to intervene and step in, right? But Bishop McKenna tells them, no, like, leave him be, because according to him, the exorcism is going well. Now, Bishop McKenna pushes a crucifix that he had, so he kind of brings the crucifix out, and he pushes it into Bill's face. Now, Bill stands and starts snarling and growling just like a wolf, and the bishop retreats past the altar gate. Bill is kind of, following, so the bishop is retreating at this point, and Bill is still going kind of after him. And Bill tries to rush through the gate, but the bishop proceeds with the exorcism despite everything that's going on right now, and he continues to speak in Latin, right? Saying whatever he's saying. And then, I don't know if it's something that he said or what, but Bill starts feeling weak, and he starts retreating slowly back towards his chair. He sits down, and that coldness in his body temperature, remember that coldness that would take over, it starts to dissipate, and the werewolf-like power starts to slip away. Bill even feels that he's starting to lose consciousness, and as he does, he feels this great peace come over him. And now the exorcism is over, the exorcism is complete. When Bill regains consciousness, he says he felt again this peace. He felt like the wolf spirit, allegedly, had kind of, that it was gone. So he feels that this has been effective, it's been successful. He feels a change in him again. And after the exorcism was performed, Bill didn't have any other episodes or incident after that. So he was basically cured, right? And they lived happily ever after.
Maybe it was ordained to be me, to make people aware that this demonic possession thing does happen.
Do you think this was a case? Did I even talk about this? Lycanthropy? I don't even know if I mentioned this at the beginning. This is a thing. Lycanthropy is a condition when a person believes they are a werewolf, if I'm not mistaken. I'll insert it right here. I may not be wording that exactly correct, but that's a thing. Do you guys think this was a case of that? Do you believe he really was possessed by a wolf spirit, aka the wolf spirit? What do y'all believe? Let me know. Or, again, some of these incidents did occur after Bill had a few drinks. Maybe he just couldn't handle his alcohol. I don't know. What do you all think? Was this a real werewolf or what? Or what? But next time there's a full moon, just be careful. If you spot a werewolf, report it immediately. Don't approach it. Call 911. Call whatever. Who are you going to call? Wolf Busters. I'm just kidding. I don't know. Is there a full moon tonight? Oh no. Wait. I'm not. Something is happening.